what led you to this point? Out of all the things you could do in life, what led you to be doing a doctorate?
Right. Well, actually,
and
that
this
ties,
particular topic as well.
That ties back into, and you've asked it anyway, but it ties back into the research, I think. I mean, and this is where I was going just now as well with the inclusion thing. I've used the framework from the legislation, but there's multiple problems with it, intersectionality being one. But the other one being that, in actual fact, all of us present a wide profile of different facets that could be prejudiced against for lots of different reasons.
Including those that aren't as visible, I was thinking as well.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Neurodiversity is actually a key one of those. But and the reason, because people cite numerous barriers and obstacles to success in life. And really, if you're looking for a perfect inclusive space, then anyone should be able to work within that space. And to give you an example, how wide and how broad that becomes, there is a prince of the realm who well, is he still a prince of the realm? I'm not sure, but who has considerable sort of concerns about his treatment over the last few years. And so when you're at that end of society where they seem to have had every privilege...
Oh, you're talking about Harry?
Yeah.
I was trying to figure out who the
Maybe
hell
I should have just
about.
spoken out loud. But yeah, I mean, Prince Harry clearly feels very strongly that there have been barriers to happiness in his life and fulfillment in his life. So what I'm saying is that... and that's not to devalue other people's experiences, and not to say that there is different value in different experiences. But Harry makes a compelling case that not everyone agrees with, but still makes a compelling case that...
And what you're saying is if someone that to everybody else seems like he has almost the perfect life, all these riches, the luxury to go wherever he wants in life, still has grievances over how he's been treated... I don't know how we're going to finish that point. What were you going to say?
Well, no, because I mean, you're sort of making my point for me, but which is fine.
That basically everyone has some form of barrier to something that they want that they can't get.
Yeah, and I was going to give myself as the example because that points to why I feel motivated to get a doctorate.
I think people say that we're all victims.
Well, you can look through that lens, but I think most of us choose not to. Well, Prince Harry obviously not. But
well, I mean, I think from time to time we probably all do.
We're going off the point, Tom. Anyway,
no, I don't think we are.
My point was that.
Are you a victim?
You don't know what my point was.
I don't care about
my point. My point was is that no, in some ways I do see myself as a victim there because I found that I wasn't a fish in water in broadcasting, and I struggled to gain a foothold and to develop a career in broadcasting, and moved around a lot because of that, generally in smaller TV stations. I had one of the better qualifications in broadcast journalism in the country, should have had every opportunity open. And I saw some of my colleagues on that qualification doing very well, especially within the BBC. And it's at that point I realised that traditionally broadcasting has had a real class divide, which is well cited and well...
So I could counter this, couldn't I, by saying, but you seem to be a white male who speaks very well, who's quite tall, which is also a good thing to be what is the
well, that's
what's the barrier here?
And so this is where Pierre Bourdieu comes in, and this is why so many people in my situation read Bourdieu for the first time and suddenly go, oh, he understands me. It clicks, and you hear these stories time and time again. Most people in my... I'm sorry, I should mute this
That is unprofessional.
It is incredibly unprofessional, and there's 3 times I let it do it before I've muted it. There we go. It's an often told story that when you read Bourdieu for the first time, suddenly going, and I present, and perhaps to a certain extent I've deliberately cultivated that as well, an impression of being somebody that would glide through, but I didn't feel that way because I came from a very rural hamlet in Somerset, as I will say it with my Z's. Now I'm talking about home. And I went to a comprehensive in an area that has the lowest social mobility in the country. And I only found that out recently, actually. I'd never seen it. I'd always thought that growing up in that area was a huge privilege, and not realised what a barrier to social mobility growing up in a very insular seaside town can be. Now, I mean, I'm not claiming that I have the same barriers I had the same barriers as other people had to. I mean, I very much know that I had privilege in multiple situations, and exploited privilege in multiple situations, and probably would not do it any differently in the future. But that's not to say that I agree with that being the way that the world is. And that's why, in a very small way, this doctoral research hopes to open an area of huge privilege of working in the television studios that we have here are very, very nice, top of the range, 4K, probably the best in the country in an education establishment at the moment, taught by some very, very important people who've had glittering broadcast careers, and me, But yeah, so I mean, it's a huge privilege to be here as well, and I think one of the things about being able to reflect on privilege, and I know a lot of people have balked at this concept and idea of privilege, but one of the things about being able to reflect upon it is you can take two decisions. You can either balk at it, you can have problems with it, and you can critique it, or you can actually say, no, I get that. I have had a huge amount of privilege in multiple ways, but possibly not in this way, which I can use empathically to think about how that would function for other people who have less privilege. And why can I not therefore use my privilege, or the situation that I find myself in due to that privilege, to make the world a better place in the future?
It's interesting, isn't it, this idea of check your privilege, or check your privileges comes across as a negative connotation, doesn't it? It's when people say shut up, basically, aren't they? Like, people get put down online if they say check your privileges.
Right. Yeah.
But I wasn't trying to go down that route.
Anyway. And sometimes that's a very relevant thing to be saying, I think.
Well, I mean, I suppose people could level that criticism at Prince Harry, right?
And you were saying I was unprofessional.
So, oh shit, yeah, that's a reminder I need to do something.
And you've sworn on next to it. And you've sworn on a microphone. Brilliant. Full house.
Sorry, give me 1 second. I just need to amend the time on this so I do remember to do this, because otherwise I'll be in trouble. I need to drop the push chair that I inadvertently brought to work this morning in the boot of my car. Actually, back home.
No, that is a wonderful example. I used to I worked for a short time as a videographer with my own business, and went out, and it was mainly viral video, and worked for some very large clients. And there was one particular client who I would have said should have known better. Now, one of the reasons that I worked like that was because I was a stay-at-home dad, and so I was primary carer during the day because my wife was working. For my daughter, and occasionally I would have to take her on filming jobs. And the vast majority of people actually saw it as an advantage to have Chloe along to these sort of things. I mean, but there was one particular client I had who loomed over the top of her, and she burst into tears, and then had a real problem. That I was a working father that had to, and because it was not deliberate, it was organised that she would be looked after. It was a long story, and it was organised by his press officer, and she was unable. That was unable to happen, and I lost that very important work. It was a public service employer as well, so an individual having an issue. That way. So what I'm trying to say is I suddenly understood what a challenge being a mother and working must be from that parallel experience.